Welcome to the Money GPS. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Inflation is the number one topic. You see this coming up in the conference calls. You look at it at the dinner table. It's all over the place. There's a lot to this that I wanted to get into. I know I've been covering this a lot, but I know it affects you. The first thing I want to cover is the inflation stimulation. I will show you what's happening on multiple levels. The second thing, and really the most important, is the global synchronization. We are seeing activities taking place that, if you're not paying attention, might seem random. It might seem disconnected, but in fact, they are all happening together. The third thing is the economic stagnation, which connects me in with something so important. Why you and your avocado toast might be getting more expensive. Oh, and by the way, if you stay until the end, we're going to talk about what Michael Burry has to say. Let's get into all of that and more right here. Supplier prices rose 11.2% from a year ago in March, the biggest gain on record. Let me repeat that. The biggest gain on record. Now, while some parts of inflation, because inflation is really made up of a lot of different things, have actually come down a little bit, we can see that in this case here, supplier prices are gaining at a record pace. And you see this, of course, with oil. You look at all these different input costs; they're getting more expensive, and obviously that's going to have an impact on this. And then you're going to see an increase in prices. I just read today that Amazon is going to push an increase of, I think it's a 5%, basically a fee on top of sellers. They are going to push this because of higher gas prices. Okay, it doesn't matter if gas were to go down at this point, they're not going to take away that fee. And what does this mean? They specifically stated the fact that, I think it was a Bloomberg article, that of course they're going to pass that on to the consumer. So you're going to see prices increasing higher. In the previous video to this one, I showed you that online prices have already increased, and you look around the board, they are all doing the same thing. So if you want to check this out, and you could see the charts and you could see what they're all saying, but if you've been watching this channel, it's a broken record. Okay, this is the broken record GPS, where I cover all of this information. You could see it in chart form, you could see it in article form. I cover that for you right here. This is just showing us the PPI, and looking at it month over month or year over year, it is extreme to say the least. And it's just basically, if you just go all the way back, I mean, since March 2020, this has been up and up and up and up and up. It doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Global synchronization. Let's get into that right away. It is so key to understand what is happening right here. And this, my friends, is what I want to talk about. Bank of Canada increases policy interest rate by 50 basis points and begins their quantitative tightening. So right now, you have the Bank of Canada going up to 1% in interest rates. It is largely expected that in May, we will see the Federal Reserve do the same thing. You looked at New Zealand, they basically had the same thing, except they are now at 1.5%. I covered that in the previous video to this one. Look all over the place. They're doing the same thing. Not only are they increasing interest rates, not only are they cutting back on the amount of money that they are printing, but they are doing it at a pace they haven't done for a very long time. I don't think it says in here, this is directly from the Bank of Canada's website, but we are looking at this. I mean, some of them are, I think, from the year 2000. We haven't seen a 50 basis point hike since the year 2000 for Canada. Okay. And this, like I said, expect the US Federal Reserve to do the same thing. What about Argentina? Everybody's watching Argentina because it is quite an extreme example. Well, they raised their key rate to 47% as inflation hits a 20-year high. It's the fourth hike this year. Fourth hike this year already. Okay, we're in the fourth month, 4 hikes. Okay, we will see. We will see what happens with Argentina. I think it is a concern. If you want to look at this, you can go to globalrates.com, global-rates.com. I have all the sources for all of my stuff down below. You got to go to the sources. People ask me every single day. You got to go down. There's a link for the sources. You click on that. All the sources are there. I don't hide anything. I show you everything I use here. And basically, this website just shows you a breakdown of the different central banks and what has been happening. If you look here, it might be hard to see. The font might be a little bit small for you. But essentially, this column is showing us when the last change was. And not all central banks have increased at this point. You could look at Australia. 2020 was their last time they changed, and they brought interest rates down. But we will see if that changes. But a lot of these are 2022. So right now, together, there is a global synchronized effort to tighten monetary policy. This is happening. Whether you believe it or not, you can look at this for yourself. They are all going in this direction. Could they all stop and reverse course? Absolutely. But this is the trend. We must be aware of that trend. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of 2022s, and of course, we're seeing the direction being up in general. Okay, every central bank is going to do something different, but that's the general trend. Looking at this, Jeffrey Gundlach, somebody well respected, we think that inflation is going to fall this year, but remain elevated. He predicted that it would probably fall to around 6%. Okay, so I think that it's important to see what he had to say, not necessarily saying, okay, there's going to be a crash tomorrow, not necessarily saying that there's going to be this big change where, inflation is not there. He's just saying, it might slow down a bit. He is not expecting some sort of hyperinflationary event and so on. And what I've talked about so many times before is that you can have lower inflation rates. It is absolutely possible. How do you do so? Well, demand destruction. If stuff becomes too expensive, whatever that is, well, of course, maybe that's a car. Well, somebody's going to say, well, if I can't afford that car, I'm not going to buy it. If I can't afford that, whatever new trinket or widget or whatever it is, I'm just not going to buy it. And so you start to see the sales come down, you start to see the corporate profits come down, and that does have an impact, and we will see that. So this is price inflation, by the way, we're talking about, of course. UK workers see the biggest fall in living standards in 8 years. This is so important. For my friends in the UK, you have been sharing what you've been seeing, and please don't stop. And no matter where you are. If you're in Scandinavia, let me know what's happening there. Okay, I've seen your comments. If you are in New Zealand, seen those comments as well. I mean, I pay attention to every single comment. I read every single comment. I try to get back to as many as I can, but I read every single comment and I try to give the heart and the like to as many comments as I possibly can. Filtering through all that spam garbage in there is difficult to do, let me tell you. Okay, anyway, this is bad, okay, because we see inflation rates going up really, really high in places where they're not used to it, like in Europe. I mean, there's just been this desperate attempt from the government and central bankers to increase inflation rate, and certainly we can see that a lot of it has to do with energy prices, because you can see the income squeeze living standards are falling at the fastest pace in more than 8 years. So looking at this right now, if I can get that to come up somewhere, there we go, minus 1.3%. Okay, just, if you want to check it out. What does this mean? Well, essentially that because inflation, like your wages can go up, but if inflation is going higher, you're being crushed. No matter what it looks like, that $100 bill you have doesn't necessarily equate to anything. Okay, but it looks real good. It's got a 1 and 2 zeros. Hey, that's fantastic. But not when the currency is being devalued. Airfare surged 20% over the levels from before 2020 as inflation hit vacations. So what's happening here? Well, of course, people are saying, hey, we've been cooped up. We want to move. We want to get places. All right. So you can see that what the airlines are doing, they are going to increase. They're going to increase. I talked about this. I wish I could find those comments. People were literally very upset at me in the comment section saying there is no way that we are going to see corporations increasing their prices as a result of anything. And I was saying all through 2020, this was in 2020. No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to increase their prices. And by the way, inflation is transitory. I mean, what world are these people living in? Really? Now, this is interesting. Heavy truck and auto sales have slumped. This right here, the growth is at the current level it's at, is only seen before recessions. Isn't that interesting? You could see that in 2008, 2009, same with 2000, same with 90, and you go on. Isn't that unbelievable? Now we have this right here, shipping and freight weak when liquidity is poor. I've talked about poor liquidity over and over again, and you could see right now that that is the case. These happen to be in sync with each other, to say the least, looking at the Baltic Dry Index year over year, as well as the G10 excess liquidity, and they happen to be cause for concern, to say the least. Truck blockade at Mexican border imperils $440 billion of trade. All I gotta say is my avocado toast, it's $18 right now, and I think it's gonna be 25 pretty soon. That crosses the line, okay? You could do anything to the gas prices, you could do anything to all those other prices, but my goodness, don't you dare touch my avocado toast. All right, and then Michael Burry had this to say, watch profit margins fall. And then price to sales ratios. Early in an inflation, pricing power runs ahead of sticky wages and supply contracts. Inflation laughs last. Needs not peak but once. So just a couple charts there for you. I think that will be all for today's video. If you appreciate the information, simply hit that thumbs up button. By doing so, you support me, and I do want to thank you for that. All right, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.